After studying this module, students, you shall be able to learn how to derive the aggregate demand curve. You would also be able to understand the relation between aggregate price level and aggregate output and identify factors that cause shifts in the AD curve. We shall also be able to understand the concept of equilibrium in the AS-AD framework and evaluate differences between the concepts of short run and long run equilibrium. In the previous module, we learned about the aggregate supply, which is AS curve, which essentially captured the relation between aggregate price level and output from the supply side. In that module, we also refer to the aggregate demand, that is AD curve, that represented an inverse relation between aggregate price and output levels. In this module, we will now explain how to derive the AD curve and understand why there is an inverse relation between price and output from the demand side. We will also learn about factors that affect the slope and causes shifts in the AD curve. Thereafter, we will cover the concept of equilibrium in the AS-AD framework, which was briefly introduced in the previous module. Here, we will explore this relation in greater detail and try to get a deeper understanding of these issues. You may recall in earlier modules, we used the ISLM framework for analyzing macroeconomic equilibrium in the short run when prices were held constant. Now, the assumption of constant prices is relaxed and we analyze how price adjustments takes place and how they affect output and macroeconomic equilibrium in the medium to long run. The ISLM analysis allowed us to study equilibrium in the goods and money markets under the assumption of constant prices. In this module, we will use the AS-AD framework to study the joint determination of equilibrium price and output levels. So, in what follows, first we turn to the ISLM framework and examine how a change in prices affects equilibrium in the goods and money markets. This gives us the essential tools to derive the AD curve, which is taken up next. Along with the derivation of the AD relation, we also examine factors that affect the slope of this curve and factors that shift it. Thereafter, we develop a deeper understanding of equilibrium in the AS-AD model, which was briefly introduced in the previous model as we discussed the possible alternate slopes of the AS curve and their implications. In particular, we will distinguish between the concepts of short run and long run equilibria and try to understand the role of price adjustments in achieving long run equilibrium at the natural level of output. To understand the relation between aggregate price level and output, we will use the ISLM framework that was introduced in the previous modules. Can you recall, students, what was the role of prices in the ISLM framework? Prices figured in the LM curve relation, which represents money market equilibrium. The LM curve is the locus of all interest rate income combinations for which the real demand for money is equal to real money supply. Real money supply is essentially nominal money supply M divided by aggregate price level P. The real money supply is a parameter of the LM curve. Suppose the nominal supply of money is given by M0 and the price level is P0, so that the real money supply corresponding to LM0 is M0 divided by P0. Now, if there is an increase in the aggregate price level from P0 to P1, ceteris paribus, this reduces real money supply to M0 divided by P1 and shifts the LM schedule to the left to LM1, as you can see in this figure. In contrast, a decrease in price level from P0 to P2, ceteris paribus, acts like an expansion in real money supply and shifts the LM schedule to the right to LM2. Note, in these cases, which is for LM0, LM1 and LM2, the nominal money supply is unchanged at M0. Why does this tell us, or what does this tell us about the relation between the aggregate price level and output? As price increases, real money supply is reduced. The LM curve shifts to the left and equilibrium output is. We are now ready to drive the aggregate demand relation. But before that, let us recall the previous diagram, where initially price level was P0 and equilibrium output was Y0. As price increased to P1, ceteris paribus, the LM curve shifted from LM0 to LM1 and equilibrium in the goods and money market was achieved at a lower level of output Y1. As real money supply shrinks with unchanged demand for money, there is excess demand for money that leads to an increase in the interest rate. As the interest rate increases, the interest elastic components of aggregate demand, that is investment and also partly consumer expenditure, decrease, leading to a lower level of output at equilibrium. Starting from P0, if the price level decreased to P2, we can represent these price and equilibrium output combinations P0, Y0, P1, Y1, P2, Y2 graphically with price measured along the vertical axis and output along the horizontal axis, like in this diagram. In this way, ceteris paribus, for each price level, we can find the corresponding level of output for which the goods and money markets are in equilibrium. The locus of all these points gives the AD curve that represents the inverse relation between the aggregate price level and GDP. Note, along the AD curve, for each price level, the corresponding level of output represents a point of short-run equilibrium, that is, equilibrium in the goods and money markets. Also, note that for each price level along the AD curve, there is an associated rate of interest at which the goods and money markets. Now you should clearly see the reason why the AD curve is downward sloping. Can you also say what are some of the factors that would affect the slope of the aggregate demand AD curve? When would the AD curve be very flat and when would it be very steep? Clearly, the answer lies in the interest elasticity of the aggregate demand and money demand functions in the ISLM model. For instance, when aggregate demand is relatively interest inelastic, that is, not very responsive to changes in interest rate. A given change in price would be associated with a relatively small change in output, and the AD curve would be steep. A flatter AD curve would be observed when aggregate demand is fairly interest elastic and a given change in price has a fairly large impact on output. We will now discuss some of the factors that bring about a shift in the AD curve. Once again, you should be able to grasp these concepts very clearly based on your previous understanding of the ISLM model. Suppose there is a change in nominal money supply, holding all other factors including the price level constant. Let us see first how this affects output and interest rate in the ISLM framework, and then we shall see its effects on the AD curve. As shown in the upper panel of the diagram, an increase in nominal money supply, say from M0 to M1, given prices, increases the real money supply and the LM curve shifts to the right. The resulting excess supply of money lowers the rate of interest till money market equilibrium is restored. At the lower interest rate, aggregate demand and hence the level of equilibrium output is higher. So what does this mean for the position of the AD curve? Look at the lower panel of the diagram. After the increase in nominal money supply, the level of output associated with price level P0 is no longer Y0. The AD curve would also shift outwards to the right in response to a fiscal expansion. An increase in government expenditure, ceteris paribus, would shift the IS curve to the right from IS0 to IS1 as shown in the upper panel of the diagram. This would lead to higher output Y1 and interest rates at the given price level P0. This results in AD curve would shift outward to AD1 after the fiscal expansion, as equilibrium output corresponding to P0 is now Y1. From the above discussion, it would be clear to you that any increase in the exogenous components of aggregate demand or in nominal money supply would shift the AD curve to the right, while a contraction in aggregate demand or in nominal money supply would shift the AD curve to the left. Let us now put AS-AD curves together to develop a model for equilibrium price and output determination. Recalling that totally rigid prices of AS curve is flat in the Keynesian case and with full price flexibility, the AS curve is vertical in the classical case. For our analysis here, we take the most general case and assume prices are neither completely rigid nor fully flexible and consider the intermediate range or an upward sloping AS curve. The AS-AD framework allows for simultaneous determination of price and output as it brings together the goods, money and labor markets. The position of the AD curve is determined by variables like government expenditure, autonomous components of consumption and investment demand, taxes and net exports in an open economy. Points along the AS curve capture equilibrium in the labor market as it gives the price set by firms corresponding to the wage demand by workers corresponding to each level of output. The point of intersection of AD and AS curves gives the output and price at which the goods, money and labor markets are in equilibrium in the short run. You may note there is no reason why the short run equilibrium should occur at the natural level of output Yn. It is the full employment level of output at which employment is at its natural level and the economy attains the natural rate of unemployment. It is defined as the level of output at which price expectations are fulfilled so that expected actual real wages are the same, with no further tendency for change in real wages and hence output. Suppose the equilibrium price output combination in the short run is represented by P0, Y0. There is no reason Y0 should be equal to Yn. Indeed, Y0 may be greater than or less than Yn. Recall from the discussion in the previous module that at Yn, P is equal to PE, that is, actual price is equal to expected price. This means in the short run, when output is equal to Y0, and remember Y0 is not equal to Yn, the corresponding price level P0 may be greater than or less than PE. So what is the process that ensures a movement towards Yn, given that in the short run output is not equal to the natural level? We discuss below the kind of price adjustments that are likely to occur, inducing a movement of output towards Yn in the medium to long run. Let us now look at the price adjustments in AD-AS framework. Suppose the AD curve is AD0 and the AS curve is given by AS0 and the short run equilibrium output is Y0, which is less than Yn. In the diagram, clearly the actual price level P0 is less than the expected price level PE. Now, this would induce a downward revision in workers' price expectations. In this module, we learned how to derive the AD curve. We explored certain characteristics of equilibrium output and prices in the AS-AD framework and learned about the process of adjustment towards the long run equilibrium level of output. In the module, we shall use the AS-AD framework and explore the impact of supply and demand shocks and learn about the impact of monetary and fiscal policies on price and output. So, quickly recalling some important points which we have studied. The AD curve captures the inverse relation between aggregate price and output. We have also learned that the AD curve represents all combinations of output and aggregate price level. We have also learned that the AD curve represents all combinations of output and aggregate price level for which the goods and money markets are in equilibrium. We have also learned how a change in aggregate price level affects output via a change in real money supply. This is captured in movements along the AD curve. We have also seen how the AD curve shifts outward or inward with an increase or decrease respectively in government expenditure, net exports, nominal money supply and with a cut in taxes. The point of intersection of the AS and AD curve determines price and output at which the goods, money and labor markets are in equilibrium. In the short run equilibrium, output may not be equal to the natural level of output. I am sure you will appreciate we have also tried to learn how in the medium to long run, as price expectations are revised and price adjustments induce a movement towards the long run equilibrium or natural level of output.